Hi, everybody. Ezra Levant here. I'm supposed to be on holidays, first family vacation in 3 years, but I don't do really well on vacations. My mind always goes back to work. And maybe that's natural on New Year's Eve. You think about the year past and the year that's coming up. And I've been thinking about it. And Trudeau says that 2023 is the year Rebel News must die. And I think he might actually do it.
Canada plays a leading role to make our world a better place during this time of crisis, on fighting climate change and protecting our oceans, on fighting harmful content online, through the sharing of information and best practices. We must identify and develop common standards.
There is no doubt the digital space has incredible power for good, but from disinformation on vaccines to online extremism, we've also seen the threat it can pose to our democratic values, systems, and our citizens.
This is a moment to stand for democracy against disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, and to stay true to these values that have led to respect and prosperity around the world.
See, while always ensuring and defending free speech, we must make it clear that it cannot be okay to bully and attack people online. Governments, and especially big technology companies, need to safeguard people's data and privacy and address online harassment and violence to ensure trust in technology.
We can't allow the benefits of the digital space to come at the expense of people's rights or safety. That means taking real action to protect our societies against polarization and radicalization while defending the rights of citizens online.
You know, he's tried to kill Rebel News every year and he's failed, but he's getting smarter about it. Now, I've got a plan to fight back. You can click the link under this video to see it. But first, let me prove to you that Trudeau really does mean to kill Rebel News in 2023. Now, back in 2019, Trudeau banned Rebel News reporters from attending the election debates. And we went to the federal court and a judge ordered Trudeau to let us in, and he hated that.
David Menzies, Rebel News. Mr. Prime Minister, you left West Point Grey Academy in the middle of a term, which is highly unusual. It was a law firm that made this announcement, which is also highly unusual. Sir, can you tell us the real reason why you left so abruptly? And did it involve any kind of sexual misconduct at the school?
I wrote 3 pages on that in my autobiography, and it involved absolutely nothing of the sort of the rumors that you're trying to spread.
In 2020, Trudeau had Elections Canada officers interrogate me for an hour about my book, The Libranos, that exposed Trudeau's corruption.
Today we're here about Rebel News Network Limited.
Oh, I know that. And I'm just asking you to confirm
But once
that
we're
not
done,
that not a single other loving book of Trudeau is being investigated.
but once we're done, if you believe that there should be complaints that are...
No, because I'm not a censor like you.
They fined me thousands of dollars and claimed that my book was illegal. Obviously, I refused to pay, and we're appealing that ruling in court right now. In the next year, 2021, Trudeau banned our reporters from the election debates again. And for a second time, the federal court overruled him, and that made him so angry.
Mr. Trudeau, the only reason that I'm allowed to ask you this question is because today the federal court ruled that the government doesn't have the right to determine who is or is not a journalist. This is the second election in a row that the court had to overturn your government. Do you still insist on being able to make that decision, and why?
First of all, questions around accreditation were handled by the Press Gallery and the consortium of networks who have strong perspectives on quality journalism and the important information that is shared with Canadians. The reality is organizations like yours that continue to spread misinformation and disinformation on the science around vaccines, around how we're going to actually get through this pandemic and be there for each other and keep our kids safe, is part of why we're seeing such unfortunate anger and lack of
understanding of basic science.
In 2022, Rebel News had the most watched coverage in Canada of the trucker convoy. So Trudeau's personal bodyguards roughed up our reporters, Drea Humphrey and David Menzies, and his police literally shot our reporter, Alexa Lavoie, in the leg with a riot gun. We're suing them, of course. Trudeau did all of that and more to us, and yet Rebel News is still not dead. In fact, 2022 was our biggest year by every measure. We had the most reporters deployed ever. We published the most news stories ever. And those stories were seen by the most viewers ever. And Justin Trudeau cannot stand that. So 2023 is the year he's coming to kill us. Now, don't take my word for it. It's right there in his new law called C-11, otherwise known as the Online Streaming Act. Trudeau already owns the government journalists at the CBC state broadcaster. And with his media bailouts, he rents 99% of the rest of the journalists in Canada. He controls what they say. So he just seethes when he looks at Rebel News, one of the last independent news companies in Canada, which is why he sneaked Section 9.11E into the law. So when the Online Streaming Act becomes law in a few months, Section 9.11E will give Trudeau the power to order internet companies like Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter to promote or hide whatever news Trudeau likes or doesn't like. So he can order them to promote the CBC and the Toronto Star and to make it impossible to find Rebel News. Here is the exact wording of the law. Trudeau can, and I'm quoting here, make orders respecting the presentation of programs and programming services for selection by the public, including the showcasing and the discoverability of Canadian programs and programming services, unquote. So let me translate. Trudeau doesn't have to ban Rebel News anymore. He can simply order the big internet companies, the online broadcasters, to make us disappear. I have heard several journalists call this the Kill Rebel Law because it so obviously targets us. But I've got news for you. We will not lay down and die. As you know, we fight like hell when Trudeau tries to censor us, and we often win. We've beat him twice before in federal court. But what if he actually succeeds this time? Imagine no Rebel News. Imagine silencing me and Sheila Gunn-Reid and David Menzies and Alexa Lavoie and Drea Humphrey and the dozen other reporters we have across Canada. Imagine if we hadn't been around this year, if we didn't have reporters embedded with the trucker convoy in Ottawa and Coutts, Alberta. Imagine if we didn't have Rebel News telling the stories of hundreds of ordinary Canadians and small businesses and churches and pastors who fought back against the lockdowns. And we used lawyers that were crowdfunded by Rebel News viewers to help them. Imagine if Trudeau got his way and we were just vaporized. We can't let that happen. But Trudeau is planning to do exactly that. Will you help us survive? We've already hired a top legal team to fight the Online Streaming Act the day it becomes law. I should tell you, we've got the same great lawyers that we hired for Arthur Pawlowski, so we're talking the top team in Canada. They've been studying the bill and finding its flaws. We believe it violates our constitutional freedom of the press. Problem is, we don't really have a lot of allies left. They've been co-opted. They've been bought. The Canadian Association of Journalists, they love Trudeau's new scheme because they only care about the bailout money he's giving them. Even so-called conservative newspapers like Post Media, they're pretty much silent on this whole subject because the company, Post Media, is actually the largest recipient of Trudeau's bailout money in Canada. Did you know that? Now, there are a few other independent websites in Canada, and I deeply admire them, like True North and Western Standard. And by the way, you should subscribe to both of them. But for whatever reason, they have not been targeted by Trudeau in the same way that Rebel News has. I think Trudeau simply has a personal vendetta against Rebel News, or I don't know if it's against me personally, because we fight him so hard. We really are alone here, except we've got you. Would you please consider a special gift so we could hire this legal team, so we can live on to fight the good fight in 2023. Look, we fought Trudeau before and won, and I think we can beat him again, but we can't do this alone. Please click the link under this video to help us fight back against Trudeau's censorship bill. Because in truth, Trudeau isn't really coming for Rebel News. He's coming for you. We're just standing in his way. Thanks for your support.